But now to power prices. This week, AGL Energy, Australia's largest electricity generator, advised its customers that their power bills will go up further, only weeks after shutting the Liddell coal-fired power plant in the Hunter. The numbers aren't pretty. Customers in New South Wales on variable rate market contracts will see their bills increase by 29.7% on average, starting on the 1st of July. Some will face increases of as much as 51%. AGL customers aren't the only ones to get stung. Origin Energy has also told customers this week of looming price increases, as has government-owned Red Energy. Energy Australia is expected to advise its customers of the increases in its market offers soon. These price rises follow increases last year of more than 30% in many cases. Joining me to discuss all this and more is the Australian newspaper environment editor, Graham Lloyd. Graham, welcome to the show. Graham, I may take you back now to 2018 when AGL Energy rejected a $250 million bid by Alinta Energy to buy the Liddell coal-fired power plant, which AGL recently shut down for good. You might remember at the time, former Prime Minister Tony Abbott said, of course AGL wants to shut down Liddell because it's a source of cheap power and they want us all to pay more so their shareholders can get higher profits. According to The Australian, JP Morgan analysts said selling the power station to Alinta would hurt the wholesale prices that AGL can charge for energy from its other assets. Well, we fast forward 5 years later and AGL is now charging its customers a whole lot more after shutting Liddell. And just this morning, AGL's share price skyrocketed on the back of higher net profit expectations, buoyed by higher wholesale power prices. Sure looks like Tony Abbott was right, doesn't it? Graham, how is any of this fair?
Yeah, good evening, Amanda. It's certainly Tony Abbott had a keen appreciation of the power sector, and he was pretty aware of all the double dealing that was going on at the centre of it. I think the point he was making was, look, that the same companies that own the power generation facilities also own the other sources of generation, and they only make bigger profits as the market squeezes and the price increases. This is something that we've seen all the way through as coal plants have been closed, and gradually that squeeze is getting tighter and tighter. We're seeing the small energy producers fall out of the market, and the big generator producers that remain, such as AGL, they're starting to put their prices up way in excess of what regulators have said you can do to standard offers.
Graham, what is the impact that the power price situation is having on energy-intensive industries like aluminium smelting, steel making, fertiliser production, manufacturing and oil refining?
Well, the big energy users are being really hit from every direction. A lot of those big industries use gas. There's been a big rise in the price of gas because of a shortage of domestic supply. Those that use electricity, they're faced with the same power bill concerns of everybody else. And these are big industries. They take a long time to change direction. You'll expect the process will involve, well, what can they get from government in terms of subsidy? But ultimately, if prices are higher here than they are in other places, eventually they'll shift and they'll close.
And ultimately that costs jobs for Australians. Average wholesale power prices in Queensland rose by a whopping 457% between 2012 and 2022. The same figure for New South Wales is 346%. It's pretty shocking stuff, and it's an indictment of the way that governments have put climate ideology over fair, accessible prices for citizens. How can our businesses produce anything when they face these prices?
Yeah, certainly it's the question that has to be asked, that really we've set off on this grand adventure to decarbonise one of the most carbon intensive energy systems in the world, and we haven't had a big plan as to how that can be achieved and to protect people who rely on those power systems on the way through. It's something that a lot of people have seen coming, but I think it's really now dawning on the public consciousness and much more as the prices just continue to rise.
Graham, can you take us through Energy Minister Chris Bowens' grand plan to get us out of this horrible mess? I mean, he says he wants 82% renewable energy by 2030, but to do so will require 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines, enough to connect, wait for it, Canberra to Moscow. This isn't a plan that's going to work, is it?
Well, you've got to say on the evidence so far, you know, if it does work, it's going to cost a hell of a lot of money and most likely take a lot longer than people expect. Grand plans often look good on paper and they look quite different in the execution. I mean, the transmission lines are now becoming the focus of attention because there is such a vast demand for resources and permits and what have you to put these into action. But this has to be done alongside thousands of wind farms, acres and acres of solar panels and all the things that are required to sort of keep it going in the background. And so the enormity of this challenge is something that hasn't been tried before. It's proving very difficult in other parts of the world where it's being tried, and Australia needs all the good fortune it can find to make it work.
It's pretty hard to understand how Mr. Bowen calls nuclear energy impractical and uncommercial, but thinks 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines is A-OK. Graham, we keep seeing reports about the shortage of critical minerals and the impact it will have on the so-called transition to green energy. I've got some of the figures here. According to Professor Simon Mikko, an Associate Professor of Geometallurgy at the Geological Survey of Finland, it will take 400 years to produce enough nickel to phase out fossil fuels at current rates of production. It will take 189 years to produce enough copper to phase out fossil fuels at current rates of production. The numbers are even worse when it comes to lithium and rare earths. It sounds like the move to so-called green energy is going to trigger a massive mining boom in order to be able to meet those expectations. Do all the activists understand this inconvenient truth?
Well, I think, Amanda, look, they don't understand this inconvenient truth. The demand for metals is going to skyrocket. So that is going to produce two things. One, an enormous boom in minerals exploration and development, something that Australia will be one of the world's great beneficiaries. So economically, that may be a plus. Environmentally, the extent of the mining and the rush for metals is something that, on a fair analysis, will most likely greatly outweigh the benefits, particularly that can be achieved from Australia.
Graham, thank you so much for your time and expertise tonight.